I'd like to give an example and a little story about a self-devaluation conflict from the German New Medicine perspective. Self-devaluation conflicts have to do with our abilities and times when we feel like we are not good enough, not doing well enough in an area of ability. And this type of conflict affects our bones, our muscles, our connective tissue, ligaments, and the lymph. Depending on the severity of that conflict will determine what type of tissue it will affect. And the location of the body actually has a very specific nuance, also depending on the type of situation that it is and the specific way in which a person is not feeling good enough in their ability. So the example that I'm going to give is from way back in my past in high school. And during that time, I was really into music and theater, and I was very confident in those abilities. I'd spent years and years practicing instruments, and I felt very good in those things. But one year I decided to go out for the track team because a lot of my friends were doing track, and I thought it might be something new and fun to do to hang out with them. But I quickly started experiencing a self-devaluation conflict because I felt very unconfident in running, and I was not very much in shape when we started practicing. And so very quickly I started developing shin splints or tendinitis on the inside of my shins along the calf. And this is not totally atypical for runners when they're starting off. But what I found was, in keeping with the cycles with German New Medicine, the two phases, that I would go to the practice, I would try my best, but I really felt like crappy about myself because I didn't have a lot of stamina or a lot of skill. I felt very unconfident in my running, and when I would go home at night, I would have just splitting pain in my shins and a lot of inflammation. I was using a lot of ice, I was using a lot of anti-inflammatories, and this cycle would repeat. So in German New Medicine terms, I was in a hanging healing because I would go into the practice every day, I would feel not very good about myself, and then in the evening it would go into healing. After the practice was over, I would have all the pain and all the inflammation. The shins in that area is very typical for an athletic performance type of conflict. And so that's just indicative of the specific way in which I was experiencing it. Now, for a lot of people, shin splints might be a temporary thing, and kind of the common wisdom is that you have them at first and then they go away. And what I found for me in that track season was that even when I took time off and I wasn't really running and I was doing like low impact exercises during practice instead, I was still really intensely in this recurring cycle, the hanging healing for the conflict. And one situation that stands out to me is going to the athletic trainer and being told, oh, well, it's your feet, they pronate the wrong way, and so you're just going to have to live with this. It's just an issue that you're going to have. And that really kind of made me feel even worse about my body and about my ability to do this running. So rather than getting better through the season, it pretty much stayed the same and continued to get worse. I mean, to the point where I could hardly walk. I was having so much pain and inflammation all the time, and I really couldn't do much of any running at all. So I managed to kind of hobble my way through the season, and gradually it healed. The inflammation worked its way all the way through the healing phase. Now, the goal with these type of self-devaluation programs is that when the tissue rebuilds, it actually becomes stronger after the healing phase. So in that active phase, we're losing cells because we're breaking down this tissue that isn't good enough in our psyche's opinion. And then in the healing phase, it's rebuilding that tissue. And that's where all the pain and inflammation come from, is the healing phase, when the tissue is being rebuilt and restored, with the goal that after that healing is done, we are rebuilt stronger. So when you think about bones that have been broken, when they grow back, they are super strong. because they've now rebuilt themselves to be even stronger than they were beforehand. That is the purpose of this breakdown and buildup in the self-devaluation programs. Now, for me, with that specific track season, eventually I healed and went through the whole healing phase and got out of the hanging healing after the track season was over. And since then, in the decades since, I've gone on to do a lot of other athletic things, different types of exercise that I found were more compatible with me, that I felt better at, and I hadn't experienced anything like the severity of that situation again. But I wanted to bring that up as something that's common to athletes, but also shows that when you kind of get stuck in that loop of doubting your ability, feeling bad about yourself in that area, it perpetuates this cycle so that you're never fully coming out of the healing phase, and it makes it harder then to recover. And it can also create this self-fulfilling prophecy where you don't feel good about your ability, you experience all this pain and inflammation when you come into a healing phase, and then that kind of makes you feel worse, and so it re-initiates the cycle again. So it's easy to get stuck in that loop. And I tell this story so that you know that you can address it when you realize what your body is doing. It's not fighting you, it's actually trying to rebuild that part stronger, and you can work with ways to increase your confidence and to try to feel better in that ability so that you can move forward and get out of the cycle.